I grew up in Hungary, in a very small village, actually. For the first 5 years of my life, we lived with my grandparents. So I was one of those kids that I wish, most kids could do today. We were climbing trees, we were drawing, with a stick in the dirt. We were using our imaginations, and growing up was such an amazing time for me because I was surrounded by my family. A whole village raised me, disciplined me. So the place that I came from, I couldn't be blessed, to have. So growing up, my grandparents and of course all the neighbors had dogs and cats. So, growing up in our, culture, dogs were pretty much for, protecting your property. So, some of the, people that they wanted to break in, they couldn't succeed. So the dogs, like in the neighborhood, we didn't really have them on the leash and walking them, regularly. It's like they were just off leash, they always followed us wherever we went, especially because they knew we were the ones feeding them. So, all those dogs, the cats, we had a really cool little community in our village that, everybody respected everyone, just like animals respected us, and then we respected, their nature. The family pet that, I can remember when I was 5 years old, and it was a Saint Bernard Commodore mix, which is a very scary combination because it's a large dog, and actually I used to ride that, so it was my miniature pony. And I mean, 5 years old, I was like, the dog definitely could carry us, and he loved it. So he actually, he was one of the sweetest and nicest dogs. From the Saint Bernard, that they used to have them take care of, kids in the mountains. So you didn't have to worry about people breaking in and stealing your kids, and the dogs did not let us, get into trouble or leave the, premises. So I loved his behavior, his disposition. I didn't understand it at the time, but now I can appreciate it, and if I could clone him or I could bring him back, to life, he was a super duper dog. I'm blessed to have my parents. I couldn't pick the better, couple to be able to raise me. Very sweet, very kind people, and I always said that if I could just discipline my kids half as much as they did and love them, I'm gonna be an awesome parent. My mom, they used to work a lot, and my grandparents pretty much the ones that, until I was 5, kind of raised me, because my father also was in the military, so he was away for 2 years the first time, so it was very difficult, not to have, a father around. But thank God I can remember those years. But we did a lot of, outdoorsy stuff. We always traveled together. They loved me, out of this world, but at the same time, they disciplined as well, and that's what I'm so thankful for, and I wish actually everyone experienced the same exact feeling. Like I was pretty much growing up in surrounded by love and structure and discipline. So I have a younger brother, Attila, the Hun, Hungarian, as we always joke around that one. He's 8 years younger than I am, and I pretty much raised him. On summer, we didn't have nannies on summer vacations or summer, time from school. When I was already 13, and he was, about like 4 or 5 years old, I was taking care of him. So it was a pretty big shocker because he was 14 when I left, and as I said, for 7 years I couldn't come home. He was 21 by the time I returned, and we had a very difficult time at the beginning to reconnect, because he felt like I abandoned the family and I left them behind, and he didn't see it as, as that I was fair at all. And of course, we are the best brothers you can, imagine. I love him, he loves me. I would do anything for that. He's a little maniac. So he's actually a teacher back in Hungary, and he just got married recently. So I'm very proud of him because he's got 3 diplomas already, which actually he outnumbered me. He always thought, younger brother is always looking up to the big brother, but you know what? I look up to him, and he's an incredible, human being. He actually doesn't have a dog right now. My father actually, at his facility, we have always had German Shepherds, so we always took care of them. But he's thinking about right now, actually, once now he's, got married, he has his own place, he's thinking about getting a dog. But as I said, growing up, we had the community dogs, we had the village dogs that we were able to, hang out with. So I'm pretty sure he's very excited to finally get his own. When I came to the United States, I didn't speak the language. I did not know how to speak English. So that was one, little culture shock for me to start learning how to speak English. The other one was definitely how much more freedom people they had here, and outlook on life, and how much, like, a lot of people probably won't understand it, but but from this very structured world, when you're coming here, that's why I appreciated everything, and that's how I could see how much more freedom, animals have, or how much more freedom, not necessarily in a good way, but how much more, things that you can just reach out and you can get it. Over there, sometimes, we had to wait like a week, when we ordered bananas or something, or some fruits, that you had to wait, for a week or 2 days or 3 days. You had to put, your request in. Also, of course, just like the way how everything works in the United States is how people connect, especially these days now. Because when I arrived here in 2000, we didn't really have the Facebook. We didn't have that much of social media. But still, it was a pretty big hit on me. See how the people are working, how they're spending their time off work or at work, and of course the culture shock was for me is the dogs. That over there we had a purpose for them. That's why I think they were a little bit more balanced, and that's why they had more respect. Like dog bites, I don't even think we had dog bites in Hungary back in the days when dogs, they actually were. Not necessarily companions, but they had some kind of purpose. And I know everybody now is talking about this. You need to give your dog a job. You need to have them purpose, because without a purpose, what a chair is that I'm sitting in, it's like, it has no purpose. So being a runway model, just like the way it says, like, I would, do like any other man would do, become a runway model. I didn't become a runway model because I thought I was pretty. I need to make extra money. So anything I could put my hands on, I would do. And, when I was living in New York City, a lot of people walked up to me and they asked me, if I, was interested in modeling. And of course, I always just threw them off because, like, come on, there's no sense of, traveling the world and all that stuff. I was a dog walker at that time. So I just pretty much always just, kind of shook it off. And then at one time, I figured, what, can't be that bad. I can make just, like posing, sitting in front of a camera. I can make, a couple of $100 or a couple of $1,000s. I'm like, why not? So I took my pride away, and I started doing, actually, I paid for my own first book to get, completed. And it was a different experience. The reason why I loved it, because it taught me also so many different things about me, about the business, and I met a lot of people that probably also helped me to get where I am today. So modeling definitely was a little bit, like a challenge for me, because I was still working. I had my dog walking, service, and I needed to make space at the same time, and some space and time for doing that. It could have become my career, and again, I chose not to follow that way. I'm still happy because I had a couple of years of really cool experience. I traveled, I did some good stuff. But again, it made me who I am today, and definitely I appreciated it. I worked with a lot of amazing, photographers, a lot of, good casting directors, a lot of amazing stylists, and I've learned a lot. And so, the first, job that I had, I was a dishwasher. I didn't have to speak the language, but I started picking up some, words here and there. And then I actually moved to New York. And in New York, of course, I got a hold of some Hungarian, communities that, there are already people working, and word of mouth. They knew that I needed a job, and I started, working in construction. I started working in, from word of mouth. Then somebody was, fired from there, from another job, and then they said, hey, listen, they're looking for a guy right now delivering, fruit. To a store, so if you have a driver's license, you can get the job. So everything that was working from one job to another, it was word of mouth. Just like my dog walking days, how they started in New York City, I was working in this little shop for a Jewish gentleman on 62nd and 2nd Avenue, and one of my co-workers, she said, it's like, hey, listen, there's an opportunity. A guy is selling his business, dog walking business, and I was making $45 a day at this point, right? And I was working 12 hours. But again, I needed the money. So I started calculating. It's like, okay, so I had a little bit of saved up money, about like $400 or $500 at that point, which was almost nothing. But the guy sold me one of his clients. So my first client, and I'm still in contact with her. She's doing phenomenal. She became a realtor in New York City. She gave me her first, my first dog to be able to walk. So I paid the guy $400, and I got my first client. It was interesting though, because I still was a little bit, shaky on the language part, but people, they saw, that they could trust me. So I started from there. I started walking her boyfriend's at that time dog. So then from one dog to another dog, I was making, like 3-4 dogs, and pretty much like $80-90, and all I had to do is, walk them for an hour or two. I started thinking about it that, okay, all right, this is not bad, $45, 12-hour work, or $100, $150, for 2 hours, 3-hour work. You didn't have to really be that smart to figure the part out. But it's not even about the money. What I enjoyed is I started taking these dogs into dog parks, and I saw how people did not know how to handle their dogs. There was no structure. There was just chaos everywhere. Dogs were like jumping on each other. They started, biting each other. There was always fights. So I started working with my dogs and, getting them to walk alongside me. They used to pull their owners down. So then my client one time saw me coming home with the dogs, and she was like, how come that they don't pull you? How come they don't walk all over you and jumping on people, while you're walking them? They're brilliant. And I'm like, yes, they are brilliant because I communicate. So I started showing her how I do stuff with the dogs. So that's how I started switching from dog walking, kind of dog training. And the more people they saw me, from 3 dogs to 5 to 9 to, I ended up having 43 dogs at one point in my care. So 43 dogs, which I have really cool pictures and videos that, I'm walking 43 dogs at the same time, and they're all in line. They all know where they stay, and that's an amazing feeling. So if you anytime have an opportunity to do a pack walk, don't hesitate. Don't say you can't do it. Just feel it. So volunteering, pretty much, I started in my days, even when I was back in Hungary, I volunteered always for some organization, to get the better system, for like the kids or in the dormitory. So I always wanted to, I didn't want to be different, but I just wanted to make a difference, and I wanted to give back. So that's why, like in my high school years, I was the camera guy, that I volunteered for that job, and it took a lot of time and a lot of editing and a lot of stuff that I didn't know, but I've learned over the years. And it always, when you give back, and then you look at people or dogs or anything that you're giving back to, and you see those smiles, or you feel that connection that you made a difference, you made somebody's day, even if it's a 4-legged or a 2-legged. I don't know. I don't do it because I want something back as a reward. It's enough reward that when I came down to Florida, I went to the poorest shelter in the state. The poorest. They didn't have anything. And I volunteered my time because I knew I can make a difference. I can actually use my knowledge to teach them something that is going to make those dogs' lives so much better. And even the people that were working there, they weren't frustrated anymore as soon as we were done with our project. And then it started just, going like, go to the next shelter, go to the next shelter. And I started teaching people how to handle, difficult cases. And to see that those dogs now were pulled from the euthanasia list, they didn't have to be put to sleep, it's because we were able to just give a little bit of extra information to those people. That's what makes me want to go back every single day. That's why. Saturday morning, Sunday morning, every morning I get up and then my kids ask me, are you going to the shelter? Are you going to play groups? And I'm like, yeah. Dogs Playing for Life is what also got me even closer, and it just that boost every single day, saying like, I'm going into that kennel that are 70, 80, 90 dogs are sitting, and they're almost like prisoners. We go there without our help, without volunteering, without my mission, without me getting up in the morning and saying, you know what, I'm gonna go and help for 2-3 hours, maybe even if it's just a week. I plug in 24 to 25 hours every week as a volunteer because they need me. The animals need me, the shelter staff, they need me. And it's just only one person. Think about how much we can change if everybody was thinking the same way, like I do. Throughout all the dogs that I worked with, and when we did rehabilitation, there's a lot of them that of course would stand out, because every case was individually just beautiful for me to work with. But I had one dog that stood out, I think, was Brutus, who actually, he passed away last year. He was a 165-pound bull mastiff mix who had severe aggression towards, and this wasn't just labeled, he was really, really a mess. And I got him out of Miami. He was a year old. He was only 115 pounds at the time. So I knew I had no time to waste. I needed to get this guy under control and not to control, build the right relationship with him. So we're both respectful towards each other. And we went through some really difficult times for him to understand he cannot hurt other animals, he cannot hurt people, he cannot do the things he wanted to do. So Brutus is definitely, we couldn't even get another dog since he passed. It's been just too dramatic. I think we're ready. So in the near future, hopefully even in the next season, shooting the show, we're going to be able to show off our own companion. Our own new arrival is definitely going to be a rescue. Definitely red zone cases. When I used to work with, when I was growing up, I always said that I would never hold a dog down. Not necessarily because you're not abusing it, but I could never see it. Like the dog wanted to do its own thing in our country. In my culture, the dogs never tried to bite us or anything. So we never even had to think about why would I want to hold a dog down. So when I started working with red zone cases and I needed to confine a dog and hold it on the ground, otherwise it would hurt me or hurt somebody else. It was the most difficult thing in my life. To just one time, actually, I have a little chunk missing out of my biceps. A Rottweiler, 120-pound Rottweiler. Nobody could touch in the home. It was already locked into the room. They didn't want to call animal care and control. They called me. I got in there, and I knew I had to hold this dog down. Otherwise, it would probably kill me, take my arm. And for a second, I hesitated, and that's how I ended up with a nice scar in my arm, because I got emotional and I said, I can't do this. I can't hold the dog down. And the only thing pretty much woke me up, I guess. It just got that wake up. You got to continue, otherwise this dog is going to hurt someone. Knowing that some of those techniques that I used, that I said I would never use, which didn't hurt the dog physically or mentally, save the dog's life. So would you do something that you know it's going to save a dog's life, an animal's life, but you had to confine it with your own strength? Until this day, it's still difficult. It's still very difficult when I'm facing cases like that. In a shelter world, what makes me save lives? All you have to do is walk through a kennel, any kennel where you are right now. Go to your local shelter, walk through the kennel, and imagine those dogs are sitting there 23, 24 hours a day. Picture yourself, look at those eyes, look at those souls deteriorating, sometimes in minutes, in days, in weeks. All you have to have is look into those eyes and just ask yourself, can I make a difference? Can I make this world a better place? Saving dogs one at a time? Yes, we can.